year ago, last October, gold was $1,700 an ounce. Now it's over 2,700. Gold started moving, and it's pretty much been like a bulldozer in first gear for an entire year. Gold has gone higher because a year ago in October is when the U.S. government started talking about taking 300 billion of Russian treasury reserves and basically stealing them. And what's happened is other countries looked at that and said, hey, wait a minute. If they can do this to Russia, they can do it to us. So you've seen less buying of U.S. treasuries, and you've seen selling of U.S. treasuries by foreign nations that understand where this is going to go. Oil and trade has been settled in dollars since 1971 or 73, the petrodollar. What's going to happen is once the BRICS unit comes forth, you're going to have a third or better than a third of the world is going to do all their trade transactions and trade settlements in non-dollars. So, that's a huge amount of demand, which will no longer be necessary. And those countries that have stockpiled dollars in order to settle trade, they're just going to offload those dollars.
In October last year, gold was priced at $1,700 an ounce. Fast forward a year, and it surged past $2,700, a relentless climb that signals a deeper shift. What sparked this significant move? It was when the US government began discussing seizing $300 billion of Russian treasury reserves, essentially taking them outright. This act sent a shiver through global markets, making nations question their own dollar holdings. As countries pulled back from buying US treasuries, a new trend emerged: offloading dollars. With the imminent introduction of the BRICS currency and whispers of gold-backed units, what does this mean for the dollar's value and the American standard of living? And as Holter warns, if the dollar's decline triggers a broader collapse, will the solution be a central bank digital currency?
Well, what will happen is the value of the dollar will decline. And we already can see that incomes are not keeping up with inflation. So the middle class is being pinched on a daily basis. And then all of a sudden they wake up one morning and their dollar only buys 70% of what it did the day before, or 60 or 50 or 40. Who knows how bad the dollar is going to crash. But when it does, purchasing power is going to collapse, but incomes are not going to go up. So you're looking at a situation where your standard of living lives and dies with the value of the dollar. And if the value of the dollar collapses, then the standard of living for the average person in the United States is going to outright collapse. It should have already happened. In a world that's not propped up, in a world that's, everything pretty much all the news, all the government statistics, everything's bullshit. In a world that's not propped up, and it's propped up by the Federal Reserve, it's propped up by the U.S. Treasury with the deficits, it's propped up with deficit spending worldwide. In a system that was not propped up, it would have already happened. The system's going to go down, and we're going to go to barter for, who knows, 2 weeks, 2 months, God forbid 2 years. We go to barter for 2 years, you're going to see a good chunk of the population die from lack of food. One other thing to add to that, Kai, is that everybody watching this or listening to this should absolutely read and find out and understand what the great taking is. Once these markets implode, you're going to see banks, you're going to see brokers, you're going to see insurance companies that fail. And once they fail, people are going to find out that their money is not their money. Their money, if you put money into a bank, you're not a depositor. You are a lender, and you are the most junior lender there is. So along with waking up one morning and finding out that your dollar only buys 70% of what it did the day before, people are going to find out they don't have any dollars left because they got bailed in. Well, I really don't even think that they'll talk about it ahead of time. Once the markets collapse and people get bailed in, and the population is going to beg for a solution. And that solution is going to be the central bank digital currency, which is still going to be fiat, backed by nothing, and that will also fail. But that's how they're going to try to introduce the CBDC, because as they say, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Talking about
Even though
crisis,
they
I think
caused the crisis, the crisis, and then they got a great idea how to fix it. Well, it's obviously important, and it's important what they say afterwards. I do not believe that they're ready to go live with the unit. I'd be surprised if they did, but I do believe that a strongly worded communique is going to be issued, and in that communique, they will probably bang the dollar and outright say, we have zero plans of using dollars for settlement. Settlement will be exclusively done through a BRICS currency. And I would like to see in that communique, and not, obviously don't know whether they will or not, but I would like to see them come out and describe what's going to back that unit. I mean, I've heard, and again, anything's possible. This is all speculation, but I've heard that they're talking about 40% backing, which I thought was on the high side, but 40% backing by gold, and then 30% and 30% by rubles and Chinese yuan. But I would love to see a description of what they're going to back the unit with, and that'll give you a better idea of what it's going to look like. Well, the only way to do that would be you'd have to do the math as to what the total size of trade between all the BRICS nations is going to be, and then you've got to have enough currency to settle that trade, and then plug in 40%, and that's the amount of gold. And I can tell you, at current prices, there's no way that they could back 40% of the currency. I mean, you probably have to see, I don't know, pick a number. I'd have to do the math to actually come up with a number. But I mean, it should certainly be well north of $10,000 an ounce. And really, that's what's going to happen here, is that the East is going to take control over the pricing mechanism of gold. And LBMA and COMEX are basically going to go away. I mean, they can put whatever numbers they want on an ounce of gold. But if the East is pricing it far higher, they'll just come in and buy every ounce that's available for sale in the West. And they'll have it delivered, and the gold will no longer be in the West. The gold has been moving from West to East now for 25 plus years. Yeah, I don't think they're donating to a larger pool. I think what's going to happen is the gold held by BRICS nations will have to be segregated and earmarked toward the unit. How they do that, I have no idea. But no, they're not going to actually ship their gold, to one central location and say, this is the gold that's backing it. There's no way they're going to do that. Yeah. There will be audits, and that's the important thing. There will be independent audits. And the United States has not had an audit since 1956. So do we really have 8,300 tons of gold? And does China really only have, what's the number, 3,700 tons or whatever? No, I think China's got 10 times that. And the U.S. maybe only has 10% of what we say we have. It's impossible to know. There's no way to know. Well, the fact that, looking at Ukraine, that's basically NATO versus Russia/Russia's allies. And they just recently signed, I think with China, they signed with Iran, I believe they signed with India. An attack on any of those means all of those come forth versus NATO. And the real danger for the West is that something does actually explode and there is military action, because we're going to find out, in my opinion, that the military, Western militaries do not stack up against Eastern militaries. Russia has hypersonic missiles. There's no country in the West that has hypersonic missiles. And in the words of my late partner, if you cannot catch it, you cannot kill it. So, I mean, I hope this doesn't blow up into a outright military East versus West action, because we're going to find out that the West has no clothes, and the clothes that the leaders of the West, and I'm referring to U.S. generals, U.S. admirals, I mean, these idiots are running around in high-heeled shoes and skirts. The West has gone woke, and you can't tell me that Xi Jinping or Putin or any of the Eastern leaders are going to be scared, of a bunch of tranny leaders in the West.
Now, you know about this, so now you're going to need to know about another critical shift in global finance. Make sure to check out our next video for more insights. And as always, if you found this content valuable, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated.